fear is just your imagination undirected. I am no longer in files celebrating your wins, no matter how small or big they are.
Transaction Care, the podcast. Welcome home to the #1 real estate show on the market. I am your host and resident care coordinator, Lillian Hernandez, but you can call me Lilly. My goal with each episode of Transaction Care is to demystify the business of real estate from my point of view and interviews from other voices within the real estate industry around the world. I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. Head to transactioncarepodcast.com to join my TC community and to be sure you are subscribed to Transaction Care, the podcast, so you know exactly when new episodes are released weekly. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Transaction Care podcast. We have a very special guest today. Without giving away too much, I'm going to start by reading her bio. So Shanda Macomber is approaching 25 years in this business. She is founded Be Happy TC on July 5th, 2014. She's also an animal lover, having recently adopted 2 dogs in the last year, and she has found a love for helping others through coaching and hosting online courses and workshops with the mission of providing value to agents by being the most indispensable and knowledgeable transaction coordinators in the real estate industry. Knowing that Be Happy TC has impacted over 160,000 people is something they do not take lightly. And I don't either, which is why we are here to have this conversation, and I'm glad. So everyone, please welcome Shanda Macomber. She is also my coach, I must mention. So we'll get into all of that in just a moment, but thank you, Shanda, for being here. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Definitely. So let's go over some just basic knowledge before we jump into your journey in real estate. What cities and states do you service as a transaction coordinator? Do you have a real estate license? Do you need to be certified where you're at? Let's clean up house a little bit, get that stuff out of the way, and then we can jump into how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we service the whole state of California. I am licensed in California. I got my license way back in 2004. But we also service the state of Texas and the state of North Carolina as well.
Awesome. That's another check off my board, North Carolina. One of my goals is to interview a TC in every state. So we'll get right into that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So real estate. Let's talk about why real estate. Some people are born with a vision, like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Others, life happens and you just end up in places you never even imagined. So how did you get into real estate? Was it from a young age? Was it introduced to you in adulthood? Let's go there.
It was an accident, but it was an accident that was meant to be.
Yeah.
So I was at a time in my life where I was working 2 jobs and not loving it and going to school full time. And I had applied for a position, I believe it was a receptionist position at a real estate office. And I got the job and ended up being actually an administrative assistant. And to be honest, I almost quit. I did not love it at first. I think a lot of it was the dynamics behind it. I had found out I was replacing the person that was training me, but she didn't know it. So that was not aligned with my values. So that's probably why I hated it. But I told myself I needed to stick with it to see if it was something for me. Fast forward a few months later, I was still there and thriving and growing more than ever. And obviously I loved it because I'm still at it almost 25 years later.
Yes. Right. And so you started your business in 2014, July 5th, 2014 to be exact. But prior to that, I know you said it was by accident you got into this real estate industry. Like many of us, myself included, we kind of just end up here and it's so difficult to leave. But throughout that process, how did you catch your stride as a TC? And who trained you? Like what was it about it? What was about that job that you were like, oh, I could do this?
Well, that wasn't by choice either. So
let's get into it.
Funny story. I had been at the office probably about 3 years. And one of the agents who I adored, we had a great relationship. I was just like an administrative assistant. One day she comes and says, "Here, you're taking my files." And I was like, what? And she's like, your TC, my files, the TC that I'm working with right now, I is not going to touch my files. You're going to do them. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I have no training. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. What the heck is this? And
Right.
so I found someone that was a TC in the office. She ironically lived across the street from me.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went to her house one Saturday. We spent about 3 hours together, and that was my training. That's the only training I got. I just figured it out on my own. I knew I could do it, made lots of mistakes, but failure is the only way you learn. I learned a lot really quick because I failed a lot. So that's when I decided that, wow, I really like this. And it wasn't surprising because I've always been a fan of paper and pens and organization. And back then it truly was paper. I mean, we had to mail stuff like snail mail stuff, and there was no, in fact, I was also teaching agents how to get on the internet because we were at dial-up still way back then, and teaching agents how to email. No, email wasn't part of the MLS system. So I was kind of making some side money doing that. That's when I realized that I really, really love doing TC work. Long story short, I ended up becoming that agent's assistant about 3 months later. I wasn't really loving the job I was in, and I became her assistant part-time and another assist, and then part-time for another agent, and did their TC work.
Wow, that is definitely, I've been fortunate to interview a few other TCs in this podcasting journey I'm on, and many of us have a similar story of we were all just kind of thrown into the situation and it just worked out.
Right. It's a
But
blessing.
not without many, many, many failures. And what kept you motivated while you were in the midst of some of those failures? It was a long time ago, and like you said, it's still dial up. I remember the times when we were working with storage units and having to transfer boxes and boxes of files. Like that would be a whole day sometimes of just transferring boxes of files. But I also remember times when I was getting yelled at and I thought I'm just going to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. Was there any particular moment when, because I know you said you wanted to quit, but was that a part of your transaction coordinator journey and your story? Like, was there ever a breaking point for you where you're like, I don't know if this is for me right now?
TC, I loved it the whole time. Of course, there were times where I would be frustrated and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but I'm the type of person that just, I don't give up. I'm very tenacious like that. I think that that's probably one of my strengths is I just keep on it and on it and on it. And then I tell myself like, well, if I decided to go in another direction, what would I even do? Like,
Mhm.
honestly, I love this. And just because I have a bad day or I fail doesn't mean that it's going to be the end of the world. It's a learning opportunity and it's growth. And I love learning. That's another strength of mine. I just learn, read. The more knowledge I can get into my head, the better. And which is another reason I love the real estate industry because it's never ending. And that's something I enjoy. Some people don't like it. They're like, oh, it's too much learning. I want to learn and know it all and be done. And that's not, if that's you, then the real estate industry is not for you. So I just kept pushing through. Of course, I had people supporting me too. My husband is always a big support. My mom is very supportive. And then even my boss at the time was super supportive. I consider her one of my mentors. She's actually to this day still a client of ours.
Oh,
So I can say I've been with her for 21 years now. So it's just been an amazing journey. And if I had to give advice to someone, I would say, go back to your why.
mhm.
Why are you doing this? Sometimes we lose sight of that with all the stress and pressure and the failures. They don't feel great. They never feel great. But if you can change your mindset around them, you can kind of get around it sometimes.
I agree. And I've definitely learned that, especially through working with you. But like I said, we'll get into that later. So speaking of your why, now, it's 2014. How far back or how soon did you know you were ready to do this as a business, to launch and work on your own? Like, what was that? Walk us through that process, because I know a lot of other people right now are wanting to build a career for themselves working from home. And I know I've gotten a lot of messages of people wanting to be a transaction coordinator, but there is a lot of work to it. there's the aspect of being a business owner and then the aspect of being a TC. How did you know you were ready to merge those two and work beyond the 9 to 5 typical job?
Well, it was, of course, a very scary process. I actually talked to several transaction coordinators that had gone independent to kind of get their input, how they started, how they felt now. And they're like, I would never look back again. So
Right.
that kind of helped me too. And then I was feeling like I was at a spot where I couldn't really grow much anymore. I was already running the whole office, the agents, the TC work, the employees. So it was beginning to be a lot and I didn't have any help. So I was like, you know what? I really want to take the part of this job that I love to my own. When I made that decision, I went and let the two owners of the company know. There were two owners, and I asked them if they would support me in that journey, and they said absolutely. So I was super blessed that I was able to take the business I had from that office with me, and I still get business from that office to this day. But it was not an easy decision. And then when I got into entrepreneurship, I was like, oh, wow, I'm a business owner. This is way different than being a TC. Like,
Right.
being a TC is one thing. I got that down, but being a business owner,
Different. You're in charge of
no.
everything. What adjustments did you make in your life at that point to accommodate this new lifestyle as a business owner and accepting your new role? Had
Uh,
you owned any businesses or run any business? Were you the kid like me selling candy at lunch? Like,
Yeah, no, I had no business owning experience. My parents either. So, like, I just came from a family that didn't really talk about business owning and even real estate. Like, they weren't really into real estate. Yeah, I have family that bought houses, but that was about the extent of it. Probably one of the first things I did was hire a coach pretty soon after I decided, wow, this is a lot and I'm way overwhelmed. I have no idea what to do. So
right,
I hired a coach to help me navigate through the process. And I still have a coach and I always will have a coach because no matter how many years you do it, you get stuck in your own head.
right,
It's different when you're coaching someone else versus yourself. And I coach myself. I'm like, what would I tell my clients? But it's so different because I'm emotional about it. It's my baby. That's the first step I did. And then I just navigated my way based on that. After probably the first 6 months, I hired my first assistant because I was super busy already. Most of my clients were referrals. So that was probably the best thing I could have done, because if I wouldn't have done that, I probably would not either be here or be as successful as I want. It's
right.
important to have someone get you out of your head and help you get unstuck. And that's what a coach is supposed to do, is help you get unstuck.
Definitely. And the fact that you were aware that, okay, I need help, whether it's through coaching, mentoring, or even just hiring an assistant, and that's a part of scaling your business. And considering you had no experience, no knowledge of that, you still were resourceful in that way of taking action. Like, no, if I want to keep moving in this trajectory, I'm going to have to bring people in to guide me through that process. So, how did you know what to charge? Did you ask people? Did you just take the number you were earning at the business? How did you navigate that aspect of the business, just the money part?
The money part, originally, I did take just what I was already charging at the other business and I added $100 because it was really low. But I did research. So I talked to other TCs in the area. What are you charging, to see what the rate was, because it is dependent on the area. And then I just took whatever the average was at the time, and that's what I decided to charge. I think we started at $400 at that time per file. That was the going rate.
Right.
I would give a discount to certain offices at the time, but fast forwarding, I don't really do that anymore. I will give discounts for certain circumstances.
Mhm.
Sometimes for brand new agents, we'll give them their first file discount. But yeah, we like to stay competitive with our market.
That's smart. That's smart because we should aim to be increasing our prices, valuing our services and ourselves, and through all of it, because we do a lot. Transaction coordinators, people don't realize, they think it's just a checklist of things like 1 through 10 and we're done. Like, there's a lot of liability, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of responsibility. behind all that. But what would you say are some productivity hacks or tools that have served you well throughout this process, either recently or just throughout your whole career?
It's kind of a combination of a couple of things. First thing I would say is time blocking. And I know some people may be rolling their eyes right now. A lot of people, a lot of people are like, oh no, not time blocking, but really, and I was the same way, to be honest.
Same. I was too. I was.
Yeah, I know you were. But once you understand it and you stick with it and you do it, you realize how amazing it is. I think it's just hard. We're so used to being so out of control with our
Right.
schedules that it's hard to stick to a schedule. But it's like any habit, you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it and start small. Like, don't overwhelm your schedule. I see a lot of people make their schedules so overwhelming. Of course, you're not going to do it then. Like, where's your break? Where's your lunch?
Right.
When are you going to the bathroom? When are you going to go get water? So scheduling your breaks, I schedule my workout time, like all the personal things as well, my reading time. And I have between tasks, I have about sometimes 5, sometimes 10, 15 minutes in between. So I think that's super important. Also, our system. So we use TC Docs, that has saved us a lot. It has everything we need for the transactions in there. And then I have Airtable. So Airtable has been amazing for us. And as far as the business owner, you can create like a dashboard that you can keep track of all the numbers you want to keep track of. So for instance, I can go and look and I can see how many are closing in the next 7 days, how many we've opened in the past 7 days, what are our current pending numbers, our closed numbers, our cancellation rate, money, how much have we closed year to date, projected, our average TC profile, and how much outstanding in invoices we have, because that's important. You don't want to have a lot outstanding.
Is there a particular story or moment? Like, how do you deal with that when you aren't getting paid without having to like call the big guns on them?
Yes. Well, I just threaten them.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I've only had one
How do
instance.
you do it?
Yeah, knock on wood. I've had one instance. This was actually last year. We didn't get paid, and so I contacted him, and he said, "Oh, I'll pay you next week. Can I get your Venmo?" And I was like, "Okay, whatever. Yes, you can have my Venmo, even though that's not how I usually get paid, but I didn't want to not get paid."
Keep
So
waiting, right?
so then after that, he kind of avoided me. So I told him, I don't want to be the person that has to take you to small claims. And I also don't want to have to report you to the board of realtors. And I also don't want to have to report you to the MLS. And I also don't want to have to report you to your broker. So just pay it. And then he opened up. I don't have the money. I'm like, you just got paid. And he's like, honestly, I've not been doing well. So I did some research and he hasn't. So we came up with the plan. His next closing, he would pay me. So I double charged him on his transaction and it was taken care of. That is the only time I've had to do that. But most of my agents have been with me a long time. So there's a lot of trust there. I think in the future, though, if someone does that, I'm probably not going to work with them again. In fact, I stopped working with him. So I told him I'll do this transaction, but it doesn't align with my values. He understood and he went on his way.
That was such a major key because oftentimes I see TC struggling with that. Like, how do I ask them to pay me or how do I get payment? It's been 60 days, it's been 90 days. And you definitely want to set the tone up front, but also you threw out some big heavy hitters, MLS, the board, your broker. You have to be stern. You have to set those, be the authority in your own business and take charge. And the fact that you only have to deal with that one time or maybe just a small handful of times is impressive. And thank you for sharing that because I know a lot of TCs and other business owners needed to hear that in that manner because oftentimes it's just easier to run away and ignore it. Like, oh, it's only this much money. Like, no, it's the principle. It's the fact that you put in this hard work. The fact that you were able to get the truth out of him and rearrange the payment.
Right.
Because there's no way we shouldn't ever get paid for our work, whether it was 1 hour, 1 minute, 100 hours. get your money, people.
Oh, totally. And
Get
if
your
you
money.
if you need me to hound them, call me up and I'll help you.
Exactly. Contact Shanda and she'll walk you through that or run you through that to get your
Yes.
money. Run me my money.
Exactly.
Which actually leads me to my next point, boundaries. I feel like I've gotten a lot better with sticking to my boundaries, knowing what boundaries I need to set. How do you implement boundaries in your business? What do you have any? What is the importance to you of having boundaries, whether it's work hours or how I'm getting paid?
Yes, this is a biggie. This is where I failed in my business hard in the beginning, which probably actually led me to almost quit because I did not have boundaries around time. And so I was working 7 days a week, all different hours in the beginning because I was so scared. It was the scarcity mindset. I was so
Right.
scared that they were going to fire me if I told them no at 10 o'clock on a Saturday.
Very,
Ridiculous.
very relatable.
So it's so ridiculous, but I mean, the thought and the feelings were real. So I had to get my life under control. I had to get the business under control because I'm like, this is not sustainable as I'm growing. It's not at all. I had conversations with all my agents, like we are now Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30, and that's it. And did I lose some agents? Yes, but I'm okay. But we also gained a ton of agents. I just had to do what was right. And again, I go back to my values. That's super important to me. So if they understand, yes, you have a life and you deserve your time off. That's the kind of people I want to be in business with. I don't want to be in business with people that are taking advantage of me on weekends and not respecting that I have family time or I just need time alone, my me time. So that's
Exactly.
about self-care too. We have those kind of boundaries and we set those expectations up front when we talk to our onboard or new agents. So it's just a process and a system. So make sure you have that in your system, what to expect. In fact, I had an agent last week call and ask, do you work weekends? And I said, no. She's like, I have a new escrow for you if you work weekends. I'm like, I'm sorry, we don't. I mean, did it sound tempting? Of course it did, but I'm not going to sacrifice my time. Weekends are gold to me. So you just have to decide what is important to you and then stick to that.
Another major important element to our business and our mental health, like you said, self-care. I was the same way in the beginning, like weekends, driving in the car with my laptop on the lap. I wasn't driving, but that would be terrible. But it got to the point where I felt like I was terrified. I was so scared, especially as a new entrepreneur. We don't know what we're doing or how this is supposed to feel or maneuver or operate. But I think some of the best advice I got was like, well, when does escrow operate? What are
Yeah,
their hours?
I got the same advice. And I tell agents that, well, escrow is not open. Oh, I mean, they can't even open escrow. And they're like, oh, well, we want you to type up offers and, send. I'm like, I'm not an assistant. So we have to have like the boundaries between what is an assistant and what is a TC. And that was a challenge for me because I had come from an assistant type position to a TC. And so I am a pleaser. And so it was just like, okay, I'll write offers for you. Okay, I'll do this. And I never said no. So I had to learn to say no. And when you say no, you get your power back.
So much power that we aren't even aware of that we possess. Speaking of contracts, services, how did you develop what you offer as a service? Because like you said, there is a difference between an assistant and a TC, but it doesn't mean that they both can't coexist as an offering of your services, writing contracts, but that can happen all hours of the night. So how do you present that as an offering, or do you not? Because I know some TCs do, some don't. And that goes
Yeah.
along with pricing as well, creating other multiple streams of income for your business that don't rely on only TCing.
Right. So we just have basically two services, and basically it's our normal service that we offer, and then we have an upload only service. I wanted to keep it simple. I think it gets too complicated when you have all these tiers. If there's an agent that's really needy and it's going to be worth our time because they're a big hitter, then I will add on services, but I will also charge them for the add-on. So I have one agent that does want that, but he pays us an extra $800 a file and on top of our TC fee. So it's well worth it. And he takes very good care of us. Yeah, I don't really, that's just another boundary that I set. Like, we typically won't do things that is not in our services. And in terms of services, I just decided anything that can be done through our business hours is what we're going to do. If it's something that maybe have to be done after business hours, like writing offers, then that's not going to work well for us. Because agents do want offers written at night and weekends, and that's not going to align well, and they're going to get frustrated.
Right. And I think TC should also factor in that there are counteroffers, amendments, addendums that go into this, that if you agree to this, you have to be open and willing to say, all right, I did this by 5 p.m., but then the seller or the buyer gets off of work at 9 p.m. and they want to sign a counter. Are you going to be available to that? So that definitely also plays into having boundaries and knowing how to set them and being firm in that decision and being willing to lose money, but also knowing that you could possibly gain more opportunities from that. And whether it's having more time with yourself or your family. And that's always the most important factor in all of this, and not over consuming yourself with the work because you're afraid or whatnot. So now I want to go into your journey with coaching, and starting with you having a coach. So is that what inspired you to take on a career in coaching? Let's go through that aspect of your life and how you got to where you are today in that journey.
My coach at the time, I have a different coach now. My coach at the time, I had her probably for 4 years, 5 years maybe. And I was just really inspired by how the impact that she gave me in my business. And I wanted to do the same because I really love helping others. What I love most is seeing their progress. So when a client comes back to me and is like, I did it, kind of thing, it just warms me inside that they were able to see how to do it. And sometimes it's not always right away. In fact, often it's a year later, and that's okay too. It's on our own time. Maybe something I said 2 years ago impacted you today, and that's okay. So about 2 years ago, my coach approached me and said, hey, you want to be a coach? And I said, what? And they're like, yeah. And I said, absolutely. So we went through training first on how to be a coach. Quite honestly, it was much more than I expected. I thought, oh, I'll just listen to people's problems all day long. But it's way more than that. So I went through the training, started coaching, and it's just been an amazing, honestly, it's my favorite part of my day. Maybe even more than the TC, and don't tell anyone that, but
we won't tell anyone. This isn't going public.
Yeah, it's not public. And I do love the paperwork, but I don't know, there's something about helping people and having them see what's possible and that progress that they're getting, and seeing their confidence go up from when I start with them, they have no confidence and they're out of control, to seeing them thrive and their businesses thrive is just so heartwarming to me, because I love seeing people thrive. I just wish we were all just thriving. That's been my coaching journey, and I absolutely am in love with coaching.
I love that. How would you describe your coaching style, if you could?
I would describe my coaching style as, I'm definitely a listener. So I will listen to you. I try not to give you the answers, because we all have our own thoughts. And if I give you the answers, what's not going to happen is you're not going to really get the experience from it. What you need to do is you need to kind of go figure it out on your own. I'll give you tools, I'll give you resources, I'll give you tips, but you need to go and experience it on your own. That's where the real learning is, and that's when it will set in and really impact you.
I can attest to all of that. From firsthand experience, I think having a coach, from my point of view, the benefits of it have been tremendous. Without getting into too much detail about my personal life, I think Shanda knows more about me than maybe even some of my family and friends. But I do think it's important to have not just like-minded people in your corner, but people that want to see you reach your highest potential, and to get to the root of it, being able to admit, I love coaching more than transaction coordination. For me, I think I'm kind of going down a similar path. Not, I think I know. And it took me a couple of years to fully accept that. And I'm still exploring my own journey, but through coaching, you were trained and navigated through that whole process. But how did you handle your first client? I kind of want to go back without telling their story or any details, but what were the nerves that were going through your mind? Like, okay, this is real now. Like, were there simulators or things like that? How do you know one is the right time to hire a coach? And then as their coach, how do you know like this is a good fit for me?
So when I first coached my first client, I was super nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? And then I get imposter syndrome, right? I think a lot of it was just, I mean, still to this day, all the coaches, we have meetings every week and we are still learning because we want to polish up on our skill, just like anything. We still have training to this day so that we can be better coaches. In terms of when someone needs a coach is when you are ready to be open and to grow. It doesn't even have to be that you want to grow your business. Some people are like, I just want it to be me. That's totally fine. You don't have to want to have an assistant and whatnot. But if you feel like things are maybe out of control, if you're ever in your head a lot, I think that's super important too, because as a coach, we can kind of help you get you out of your head and thinking forward and not making those emotional decisions about your business. And then, of course, if you are overwhelmed and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to quit, call a coach. Call a coach, call any coach. I would recommend talking to a few coaches.
Yes.
And ask them if they've been trained. There are a lot of people that call themselves coaches these days, but they don't have training. So I would say just make sure you have a trained coach that has at least took some training. You also have to like vibe with them. So, I know I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. But you want to be able to vibe with them because you're going to be talking to them every week. So you want to have that energy that matches.
For sure. Alignment is so key in all elements of our life and our business, but especially with coaching. I feel like if your energy is off or if the person you're talking to constantly annoys you, like one, I mean, maybe we should explore that, but two, that's probably not the person for you. And I'm glad you said that, talk to multiple coaches and same with realtors as you're navigating your business. Don't just assume because they're waving, like you said, I have an escrow for you, but it's Saturday. It's like, okay, well, this potential, say $400 versus my time freedom and my mental health. It's just not, it doesn't work out. And I think the benefits of also having a coach can help you to process those experiences and really bring out your true colors and who you are as a person in those moments. And I just think it leaves you a better person every single time, every week, and or as often as you need. Because do you also do group coaching as well? Or
yeah, I do group coaching as well. And so that's another thing is like see what your options are with coaching. There's group coaching, we have bi-weekly coaching, and we also have weekly coaching. So just finding out what your options are. I have someone that only does it once a month right now because that's all she could fit in right now. She has a bunch of life stuff. She was bi-weekly. She had a bunch of life happen to her. So she is doing monthly, but the thing is she's like, I cannot quit coaching. I need someone to hold me accountable and move my business forward going through all this crap I'm going through right now. I know what your value is. And so can we, adjust? And I'm totally flexible for whatever you need. And I just say, just do it. A lot of people have this fear around the money, but fear is just your imagination undirected. So push through your fear and realize that there's a lot to be gained. You're taking an investment in yourself, right? So you're investing in yourself and it's going to help you focus and live a better life. That's the whole point of it, right? To kind of get around some of those fears, those limiting beliefs, those things that are blocking you. And we all have them because we're human. So no one does not have them, and we can get better at them. So like I still have them. That's why I have a coach, but I'm better at resolving them because I have the tools now.
Exactly. And flexibility is a good point. I think if your fear or your hesitation is around money or time, Then don't work with anyone that is committing you to, you have to work with me once a week. You can't take any pauses or breaks. Like those are things to factor in when you're looking for a coach or even starting your own coaching business. So you have a lot on your plate. Are your days typically the same or does it vary? I know we talked about time blocking, time management. How are you going through your day-to-day right now?
My days are similar, but they are different. I am no longer in files, so I'm not having to do the day-to-day of TC work. I do have 3 TCs right now that are doing that. So I do have availability for coaching, and I do also actually mentor agents as well. Again, time blocking helps me. There are certain things I still need to do in the business. I still have tasks and TC docs that only I can do. Very few, but it's mostly after they close. I use, because I'm not in Todoist, I use Todoist because I'm not in TC docs. So Todoist is another app that it's a to-do list, but it has a lot of functionality. I use that for personal too, to kind of help me stay on track with my day. But yeah, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. That's the great thing about Todoist. Even all my to-dos are on my calendar. So it syncs with your calendar and you can align all the to-dos. I find people will have a to-do list, but it's not coincided with their calendar. And then they wonder why they never get anything done. I'm like, you can integrate.
Right. And part of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship, whether you choose to do this alone or with a team or whatnot, is being organized and having the right systems in place and the right people. And I think what stood out to me just now is that you said you were no longer in the files. Can you tell people what that means really quick? And how did you do that? How were you able to trust someone else with your business in a sense that you weren't relinquishing everything, but you're relinquishing a big part that allows you to focus on things you're more passionate and get more fulfillment from. So how did you do that?
It was definitely a work in progress. It was hard to let go. I think we're all control freaks. I think TCs are especially. Also, if you've not taken the saboteur assessment, take that. My number 3 is a stickler. So that's about like perfectionism and not being able to ask for help or letting people do it, or I can do it, only I can do it better. And all the compliments are on me. Everyone tells me how great I am. So that was really a lot of pressure to let go. But at the same time, we were growing so much that I was going to have to either work 7 days a week or let go. And so it came up to a choice. I created systems and created a hiring system. I created a training system. And then we created a program where you graduate into becoming a TC. So in our company, you start as an assistant and then you shadow someone when you want to become a TC. And then once you graduate from that, you become a TC. And then there's, a bunch of criteria you have to pass to be able to go to the next step. That's the first thing I did, was just create systems around it. And I had people help me. Some of the assistants that I had at that time were amazing. And so they were helping me do training. They were helping me do the actual process of the training and the hiring. So I had a lot of help in that journey. But I think seeing that there was a process helped, and that they had to graduate from that process in order. So that's like the level of trust, right? Like you've done 10 files and you did them great with us shadowing you. Basically, they did everything. You couldn't hit send until we checked it. So there was a graduation program on that. And if you didn't get your first 10 files weren't great, then you do another 5 or another 20 until you were at the metrics that we had set. And it's still ongoing. That's where I'm in the business. I still randomly check their files once a month to make sure the standards are still there. I still do TC Q&As every Friday. So as all the TCs, we meet, we talk about what we've learned, anything new. That's kind of our growth time. I talk to them about like, hey, you guys need to look out for this, or this is what's coming up. So it's a time where we communicate. So that's super important. Just always be communicating.
Absolutely. Communication is so important. And I think the running theme here towards running what you define as a successful business is systems and support. You didn't try to do this on your own. You said, okay, how can I ask for help? Or in asking for help, knowing to ask for help, being brave enough to step out and say, hey, I'm trying to do this thing, and be vulnerable and say, can you help me along this way? And you have a course, is that correct, that you offer for training new transaction coordinators? Can you let the audience know what that's about and how often you offer it, and just a summary of what you offer?
So I have one that's specifically for California. That one is for 6 weeks, and we go into kind of like an overview of how to be a business owner and how to do the files in California. I have another course, I don't have any date set, that's just on how to be a business owner. If you're interested, reach out to me with all the details on that. But we basically go through like all the steps that you need to do. Like, do you need to be an LLC or a corporation right now, and who to talk to, and what does your value proposition look like, and then we do go through like time blocking and just setting up your business for success.
That's amazing. Are you doing that on your own or with somebody or a team? You want
No,
to
I'm
shout
doing it on
out?
my own. Yeah, it's
Okay,
on my own. Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. That's cool. So, just going back to having multiple streams of income, that's one way you can offer yourself as another service to others, is coaching, courses, workshops, things like that. So we've covered a lot in this episode, so we're going to wrap things up. I have a couple more segments I want to touch on, but thank you, Shanda. This has been an amazing conversation. We talk weekly at this point, going on almost 3 years, or entering our third year of working together. And honestly, I wouldn't have this podcast if I didn't choose to log on to Facebook one day and enter a random private group chat about coaches. I don't know, but it just goes into alignment and knowing when you're ready to make a shift in your life and taking that leap. Leaps don't always have to mean you quit your job. It could just mean something as simple as messaging someone about getting help. And
Right.
you have been a great help to me. And I just want to publicly say that and thank you for that. And your work as a coach is valuable and necessary, and it works for me. I can't speak for everyone else, but it has definitely been working. I have a segment called The Keys, and you've already given us so many keys to just unlocking the path towards business, transaction coordination, self-confidence, self-care. But as a TC yourself, what would you say are 3 green flags and 3 red flags in terms of what makes a great TC?
What would make a great TC is someone who is organized. So you need to be organized and have their systems all set up. I would say another green light is, or green flag would be boundaries. So boundaries are huge in this industry. And then relationship building. And I know we didn't get a lot into that, but really you can't build a business or even have a business if you don't have relationships with people. Because
Right.
even if you want to be solo, if you're not building relationships with your current agents, they may disappear.
That makes a lot of sense. And just maintaining and follow up with people.
Yes,
And that could be a
absolutely.
whole, you're welcome to come back and we can focus strictly on relationship building, because I think that's
Yeah.
important. And it doesn't have to be 3, but what are some red flags like for a TC that we should avoid to not get fired or to lose business?
I would say make sure you do what you say you're gonna do.
Mm,
Um, make sure you know what your role is.
yes.
Stay in your lane. Don't try to be the agent or the hero. And you can't care more than the agent cares about their files. So what I mean by that is, I know a lot of TCs, and I used to do it myself. I would care so much about the file and get so worked up, but the agent never responded, never, they basically said, here's the file, and disappeared. So you can't care more than them. So you're gonna have to learn to step back a little bit, and ultimately it's the agent's file. I mean, we care because we love what we do, and we pride ourselves on doing the right things, and there are deadlines, and we're like, hello, there's a deadline here, hello, but that's all we can do, right? So stay in your lane.
I love that. Don't care about the file as much as your agent does or your realtor, because I fell in that trap as well. like, but we need this, we need that. And it's like, well, at a certain point, you have to realize like, okay, well, I have insurance and I have a paper trail of all the requests I've made. It's on them. Yeah. They have just as much, if they definitely have more of a responsibility than all of us involved.
They do.
And it's up to them to step into that. So, with all of everything we've talked about, the ups and downs, the failures, the relationship building, how do you stay empowered and how do you define success?
So I stay empowered by asking myself that question every day. So at the end of the day, I ask myself, what did I do today to feel empowered? I make sure that is a theme of my life. That is like my word, because I want to stay empowered. So by knowing that ahead of time, that I'm going to be asking myself that question, it keeps me really staying in an empowered state of mind. I would say self-care is huge. We need to be reflecting. We need to be celebrating wins. We beat ourselves up, and that becomes the focus. So I would definitely say, make sure you're celebrating your wins, no matter how small or big they are. I mean, it could be you just opened a new file today, and that may seem redundant for someone that's done over 10,000 transactions, but celebrate it. It's another one. It's another one that you can add.
Exactly.
Right? It's another, you're impacting, basically on average, that with every file you impact about 13 people. So that's buyer, seller, escrow, home warranty, title, all the people in the background. So that's really impactful. And that's part of my why as well, is to have impact.
I love that. I love everything about that. And I think that was perfect way to kind of wrap up things. And the final question I do want to ask you before I give you the floor to promote anything and everything you have is, what is one goal you don't mind sharing publicly today with the audience that you want to achieve in the next year or so?
One goal I want to achieve is to conquer North Carolina. So that is something that we have just started in my TC business. And that is something that has been actually very hard, because it is much different than Texas and California in many ways. But our goal is to serve 50 people this year in that state. That is a huge goal. It's near and dear to my heart. On the coaching side of things, I want to serve 10 people this year. I want to have a big impact on, again, the industry. And so that is another goal of mine, is to serve 10 people.
Perfect. I love it. Service people. She's a service-based person. Yeah. So if anyone in North Carolina is listening and needs a TC, call Shanda. If you need a coach, call Shanda. So thank you again. This has been perfect. So I want to, again, even though the mic has been on you this whole time, I want to open up the platform again to promote yourself. Websites, social media, courses, the floor is yours. Go for it.
All right. You can reach me on Instagram at Shanda Macomber 1. You can reach me on Facebook, Shanda Macomber. You can reach me by email, shanda@behappytc.com. And we have a promotion for new agents. If you join our team, we get $25 off your first transaction with us. And coaching, I have a special promotion right now that you get one free coaching session. Reach out. And then I have my California TC course that starts next week. So hurry up. There are a few spots available. If you have any other kind of training that you would like, reach out to me, because I will do customized training as well.
Amazing. All of her information will be in the description of this episode, as well as on my blog. So head to transactioncarepodcast.com/blog. You can read up all about Shanda there. If you need to get a hold of her, all her information will be there as well. But thank you again. This is awesome. I would love to have you back. I know I'll have you back. I'm manifesting it.
Absolutely.
So this has been another amazing episode of Transaction Care. I appreciate you listening and getting this far. Like I said, head to transactioncarepodcast.com to learn about me, to learn about the show, to support the brand, and to work with me. So until the next episode, I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. Care for yourself, care for your wealth. Your time is worth it. Let's coordinate. Talk soon.